Campaign ads and the DC strategists that make them are lying to you. Okay, look, I get it. Who wants to talk about campaign ads? Especially because it feels like there's no break to them anymore. But it's not really about the ads. It's about what they tell us about our system. Take this staple of Republican ads.
Every Senate Democrat voted to give stimulus checks to convicted criminals.
Stimulus checks to convicted criminals.
Stimulus checks for prisoners.
Sounds nuts, right? Except for the fact that the overwhelming majority of congressional Republicans voted twice in 2020 to do the exact same thing. Now, here's a favorite of many Democrats in recent years.
I am taking no corporate PAC money.
Refused corporate PAC money.
I'll always refuse corporate PAC money.
What they're saying there is that they won't take donations from corporate political action committees, which are groups formed by businesses to bundle money together and can, by law, give up to $5,000 to one campaign. Sounds like a super strong anti-corruption stance, but in reality, it's pretty toothless. For example, even if you promise to reject a corporate PAC's money, you could still accept even more from its CEO and still keep your pledge. Now, of course, these aren't all the same thing. Showy ethics promises are different than lying to people that important government aid is actually a frivolous waste. But they're all trying to do the same thing: leave you with a sense of reality that is at best misleading and at worst fundamentally inaccurate. And there's no better example than the dreaded "my opponent votes with the president 99% of the time" accusation. You've probably seen it a million times. It's Republicans' go-to hit on vulnerable Democrats in 2022.
Raphael Warnock votes with Joe Biden 96% of the time.
Over 96% of the time.
100%.
100% of the time.
Just like it had been for Democrats in the past.
Mimi Walters votes with Donald Trump 99% of the time.
96% of the time.
98% of the time.
But here's the thing. F***ing stupid. First, that line, votes with the president X percentage of the time, is calculated by including a whole bunch of procedural and non-controversial votes. Boring parliamentary stuff like tabling motions, or less sexy stuff you don't usually hear about Congress doing, like disaster relief or military spending or extending government funding, because like 80% of Congress usually votes for it. And because of that, you end up with numbers like these. Donald Trump's chief nemesis, Nancy Pelosi, voted with him more than 20% of the time during his first 2 years in office. The two most progressive members of the Senate, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, voted with him almost a quarter of the time during his last 2 years, while they were literally running against him. No reasonable person would look at any of them and see someone who agreed with Trump on a quarter of his agenda. But if you believe the rest of those ads, you'd have to believe that too. Second, it works in both directions. At the same time that metric can make solid progressives look like Trump collaborators, it can also make moderates look way more loyal than they actually are. For example, Arizona moderate Kyrsten Sinema is single-handedly responsible for killing key parts of Biden's agenda, like tax increases on the wealthy. But she votes with Biden at a higher rate than Bernie Sanders, who not only backed Biden's agenda, but wanted to do way more. The reason is that Sinema, unlike Sanders, backs the administration's position on a whole lot of under-the-radar bipartisan measures, like corporate subsidies or allowing weapons sales to Saudi Arabia. Because Bernie votes no on a lot of those smaller votes that most of us really don't pay attention to, he's considered less loyal to Biden than Sinema. Hang on, it gets worse. It's all even more skewed by how much of the Senate's business is literally just voting on nominations. Senators Susan Collins and Lindsey Graham have opposed the Biden administration on nearly every one of its big policies. And yet, they're ranked as voting with Biden a majority of the time, largely because they've consistently backed a lot of Biden's non-controversial cabinet nominees and judges. Does it sound right that Susan Collins and Lindsey Graham support a majority of Biden's agenda? Of course it doesn't, but this is your brain on campaign ads. This is what a bunch of well-paid DC strategists who make money off of us being dumb want you to believe. And of course, the reason why both parties do this is because it works. Almost every ad you see on TV has been tested before by polls or focus groups, and they wouldn't be on your TV if they didn't work there. So in some ways, it's on us. We get the politicians and campaigns we deserve. So keep this in mind the next time you see a political ad. Until we see through their bullshit and demand better campaigns, it'll keep coming.